Hello, everybody, and welcome to NBA Free Agency Time, 6 p.m. on this Sunday. And with my partner in crime, as always, so good to see him. It is Marc Jackson. And Marc, obviously, we're going to talk about Paul George. There's a report out there. He's the big fish in the pond of free agency right now. There's a report that the Sixers are moving close to possibly signing him tonight. If that happens, obviously, we will bring everything we can to you. But I think there's still a lot of things to, as far as, complete on this one, cross the T's and dot the I's. He was meeting. We know that he opted out. That was the good news, because I think a sign and trade was really going to prohibit the Sixers from making a lot of moves. And we all know there's basically one guy on their roster right now officially, and it's Joel Embiid. I don't think there's a question that they're going to sign Tyrese Maxey to a big deal.
I mean, should we? No,
should we? No. But you're thinking about, that would have really prohibited them from doing something pretty major. He opted out, Paul George did, and they said he was going to be taking meetings. The Sixers being one of those teams, the Clippers obviously as well. We saw the report that James Harden is going to re-up for 2 more years on an extension. Did that move the needle for you at all, as far as maybe the Sixers not getting Paul George?
I think I've heard some rumors, Amy, that LeBron James was trying to take a pay cut to acquire a dynamic point guard about it, and he mentioned James Harden name. When I heard that, I said, uh-oh, what's about to happen in Clipperland if I start blowing things up? But then unfortunately for LeBron, he signed back. But somebody big signed, and with that only starts the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And James Harden, Hall of Famer, signing back with the Clippers. I love it for them. He's not with us. I love it for them. And with that being said, that opens the door for us. But now, could that mean, like Paul George said, let's run it back? Yeah, that could be something to keep in mind, but I'm hoping that's not the case.
Yeah, so Paul George would bring that dynamic wing player that has performed in the postseason. That's what Daryl Morey said. They want a wing player who knows how to play in the playoffs, playoff P, as he was once known. He is 34. And he has some injury history. At this point, I think everybody who's probably 34 in the league has some injury history, but he does have some serious injury history. Does that give you any pause when you think about him going forward and what kind of salary he's going to command? I mean, you're talking about over $200 million to a guy that's 34 years of age.
Amy, I think Paul George, let's talk about how he recovered from his catastrophic injury. He was able to bounce back and still be what I would say top 20 players in the league. That's remarkable when you look at it that way. Yes, he is 34 years old, but when you look at it, he played 74 games last year. Listen, I'm about what have you done for me lately? I know in previous years he has some history of injuries, but he played outstanding. He played more games than anybody on the Clippers roster. So with that being said, I don't see much adjustment coming in this year. He's not playing on the Olympic team, so that means he's going to have some rest, recovery, and be ready for next year. I like Paul George. I think Paul George's ability to score the ball, to be able to shoot the three, but the way he scores the ball, he don't need many plays scored. He can play run and gun. He plays a slow down tempo. He's so dynamic. But the underrated part about him, he's still the adequate defender, Amy. We don't talk about that as much when you think about it. He's 34, he can't defend. I go back in time, way back, when you look at Grant Hill and into his career when he was at the Phoenix Suns, he was actually a defensive stopper. I think he was a 74 years old at the time. So with that being said, I love his length. I love his dynamic play, and I love his ability to get buckets.
So I know everybody's out there and we're all scouring our social medias and all this other stuff. So the reports, as soon as we get them, we will bring them in there. So I just saw this from Shams, free agent Kevin Love, 2-year, $8 million to return to the Heat. He was a big signing for them a number of years ago, kind of that piece that you thought was going to get them over the top. He's a nice player for them. He had some nice seasons, I thought, especially the postseason when given the opportunity. Here's another guy that's a little bit up there in age, but that concerns the Sixers as far as another piece staying in the East. Of course, you assume that means that Jimmy Butler might stay. There seemed to be some disgruntled thoughts at the end of their season. And yeah, Pat Riley doesn't mess around. So Pat Riley didn't have appreciation for it. But I think that's, they're professionals, they're businessmen. They know that they can probably move past it if need be. But Jimmy Butler's made no secret that he loves Joel Embiid. He would love to play with him again. What do you think the chances are some kind of trade happens to bring Jimmy Butler back here to Philadelphia?
Jimmy is Jimmy. He's giving out buckets. He call us a playoff Jimmy. But I think, that's what kind of burnt the bridge with Pat Riley. Where Pat Riley got very furious with him when he said, if your leg's not working, your mouth shouldn't work. And I was like, whoa. And that was pretty deep. That's very telling of how he feels about the situation, how Miami Heat finished the season. With that being said, Jimmy Butler's up there in age too. I think most of these free agents now are up in age in their late mid-30s. And do we want a guy like Jimmy Butler? Jimmy Butler's an incredible player. But with that being said, I don't know. We have to give up something to get him because he's not a free agent. He says one more year. So we have to give up something. That means to deplete our team. But if you look at our roster, we don't have much to get. We're going to give it Joel. Not happening.
Right.
So I'm going to pass on Jimmy Butler.
So there's also a report, I saw this from Adrian Wojnarowski and from Shams Charania. Shams, I think, had the first report that Klay Thompson is moving on, or the Warriors are moving on from Klay Thompson. They're going to do a sign and trade. And Woj has that Klay Thompson has plans to have discussions with the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Clippers, and everybody's favorite free agency team, the Sixers. And the Sixers are going to be in a lot of these conversations because, as I mentioned, they don't have anybody on their roster. They have to fill out an entire roster. Klay Thompson's the name that's repeatedly been brought up. I'm not as high on him just because we saw a really big decline this year. And you don't know if he's going to be able to get it back. Here's one of the most prolific, one of the best shooters that's played the game. But when the wheels have come off, they really seem to have come off. What do you think the possibility? I mean, who knows? This could be like a mid-level exception. I don't know what Klay Thompson's looking for. If it's a sign and trade, how that's going to work, what other teams need to get involved for you to meet like the measurements that would need to equate out, because obviously he's due a lot of money. How that's going to play out, I don't know. But would you be interested in a Klay Thompson?
So now Klay is a tricky situation. It's funny. He's driving in a car with my 13-year-old Shane, and we mentioned free agents, and I mentioned, what about Klay Thompson? He said, "You mean 0 for 10, Klay?" I was like, "Oh wow!" I said, "What about his history of being an elite player, elite defender, elite shooter?"
These days, they're cold.
Like, yeah, we call him 0 for 10, Dad. I was like, "Well, okay." With that being said, Coach Jimmy Lonham he has this phrase, this very well, Amy, where he says, we always say, the last person to know you're not the same player is the player himself. So with that being said, Klay, the reason why he's leaving, because he's seen everyone get their contracts.
Yeah.
He's seen Wiggins, he's seen Draymond, he's seen everybody, he's seen Poole. They're like, what about me? Why y'all taking so long to have to me? And they're like, well, you're not who you were. And we already over the luxury tax. Like, we really are playing with fire. And Klay's like, so what? I won you championships. And I think this is the right decision for Golden State to let him go. Is Klay still that super all-star? He really isn't. But I still think he's a good shooter. But he is now probably an upper tier 3-and-D guy. I do want to give all that money to it. And to me, from what I'm hearing, is Klay wants another max type deal.
He wants a big time
Golden
contract.
State like, no, we're not giving you that. We can't. First of all, we can't afford it. 2, do you really think you deserve that on your current artwork? And he's like, yes, I did your history. Like, that's called history.
Yeah.
What have you done for me lately? So Klay's a good piece, but I'm not going to pay him overly bearing money to make him a starter on my team when I know he's pretty much reduced to an elite 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. You look at the teams that, Woj is reporting he's going to have discussions with, the Mavs, the Lakers, the Clippers. Those teams are probably in their minds like 1 or 2 players away from competing in the West. The Mavericks obviously making it to the NBA Finals. I think they ran out of gas because they were riding Luka so hard that his wheels fell off just because he's carrying the entire team. He led the postseason in every major statistical category. It felt like,
which is remarkable.
Exactly.
Which is remarkable.
Points, assists, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throws,
rebounds, everything.
Rebounds.
Like,
he was everything.
Yep.
He was every stat line this entire playoffs. But I thought that was interesting because the Sixers, while are probably in that tier as far as like 1 or 2 players away, they need a lot more than just 1 or 2 players. They need 6 and 7 players. And I think that there's a good chance. Obviously, they're going to re-sign the guys that they call internal free agents, which I know you and I joke about. It's kind of like an oxymoron. Either you're a free agent or you're not. But those are guys that they've had wearing their uniform. If they sign Paul George to a max deal, something very close, which is likely what's going to happen if Paul George signs here, they'd have to make some room for that salary on the roster, meaning there'd be some guys that
we got plenty of room though.
Yeah, there is some room. There's not as much room, but there is some room. That would mean that some guys like a Paul Reed might be gone. I think you can bring back several guys, but not every guy. So if we'll just play a quick, kind of back and forth.
Okay.
I'll give you a name. I'll give you a possible contract even.
Okay.
And then you can tell me yes or no. So we're
going to. So you want me to if I think he's coming?
Yes. If you would want to sign him.
If I want,
yeah,
okay,
if you
me
want
personally.
To sign him. Yeah. Okay. Just say you're the GM.
All my players getting their money, so I want everybody
exactly.
to
It's
get
gonna
signed.
But the luxury tax be damned for Mark. It's
going
to be all over the place. We're paying everything. We're on the second apron.
You get a contract.
We've invented a fifth apron. We don't even know where we're at. So, all right. So if he comes here, it would be probably a veteran minimum, which is still a decent amount of money, but not what he made last year. And that is going to be Kyle Lowry. Would you sign him to a veteran minimum deal? Absolutely.
I'll sign Kyle Lowry. Listen, Kyle's my guy. North Philadelphia, born and raised. You know, I was surprised on how much more he had in the tank. Like, I expect the campaign to really run away with them minutes, but he really showed me a lot. So, yes, I would definitely sign Kyle Lowry to a veteran minimum.
Yeah, and I think that he would probably be your backup. So I think that's a better role for him than playing.
Even though he took some starting minutes.
He played 35 minutes at some point for large chunks of the season. All right, so what about if he doesn't retire, a nice maybe mid-level exception type of salary for a Nico Batum?
Listen, let me tell you something, Nico. Like, I don't speak French. I'm actually taking Spanish classes 5 days a week to get my Spanish up. But listen, let me tell you something, Nick. If this is for you personally, Nick, my son and I, once again, Shane again, interesting. We seen him at Whole Foods, like middle of the playoffs. And he was like deep. And that's what you're listening to. He's in his car. He said, I'm listening to meditation music. I said, and a ride back from Whole Foods that's stressful. He's like, no, there's something I do. I looked at him. He has grocery for him and his family. And I was like, yeah, he's about to retire. But let me tell you something, Nick. We love the way you play. We love you here. If we can convince you not to retire, tell us what we got to say to make you not retire. I liked him. I think his minutes come off the bench. He plays the role. His activity level was unbelievably off the chart. If he needs someone to make him coffee and croissants every day, I will personally go to France, take culinary class in France to make them the way you want them, Nick. Please come back. Please don't retire, please.
Mark's going to be in that kitchen, get a little patti shoe going.
That's for me and him. Like that.
Yeah, I need a couple of. Who are you kidding? You're drinking your espresso with him. As
well, you can double.
All right, so Nico Batum.
Yes.
I think this one goes without saying, but I'll ask anyway. Probably a 3-year deal. Let's say we'll give him 18. We'll give him $20 million. Kelly Oubre.
3
years, $20 million.
He's not taking that.
You think
Kelly Oubre is not taking?
I don't know that they can afford more.
I know, but Kelly Oubre is not going to take 3 years, $20 million. He's looking for about 15 a year.
All right, then we'll re-up it. We'll see if we meet in the middle. We'll go 13 a year. 3 years, 13 per year.
Make it 4, and we got a deal.
All right. So you want Kelly Oubre back? So you're willing to go up a bit?
Yeah, I'm willing to go up. And I'm gonna tell you why.
I'm trying to get him on the cheap.
He's not going. You know why?
I'm trying to get him for $7 million.
He bet on himself last year because he turned down some offers last year.
I think people are going to come calling for him.
His numbers going to be called. And the interesting part about him, I said it. We haven't had a player like him since Andre Iguodala. I mean, athletic wing that can get you buckets getting to the rim. We haven't had that here. We normally had position players, either a defender or a shooter or a 3-and-D guy. He's not that. He's another scorer that can come off the bench or start for you. I like Kelly Oubre. I want him back.
All right. So far we've got Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. We've got, and this is the scenario that they signed Paul George. And now we've got Nico Batum, Kyle Lowry, and Kelly Oubre.
We got 15 more to go.
We got 6 guys. We have a starting 5 and 1 backup.
Castle's under contract, I thought.
Council's
on the contract.
Yeah, I think
he's guaranteed this year, and he's not a 2-way.
Yes, because they had to re-up it before the end of the year.
They switched his contract to
there you go.
Guaranteed.
We'll double check that, but maybe we have 7 players. We have 2 guys on the pitch. I mean, just a few more. You don't even have a playoff rotation at this point. Okay, so let's go.
I'm waiting for you to mention the name I want, but I think we can get him for cheap. So let me throw this one at you. Can I give a one at you?
Yeah.
No.
So that's my big question, because I think you can get him on the super cheap
because of his back.
Yeah. So, and he's such a great player for this team. You know, when you bring up Nico Batum, like, he was such a great player for this team, for this fit with Joel Embiid when you're building around and playing through Joel Embiid. DeAnthony Melton, like, it was just the biggest tragedy last year because you knew
out of nowhere.
Yeah. And it was debilitating. Like, you and I obviously are doing these pre and post game shows. And when he went down and when he came back for like 1 game, or I think it was 3 games, I was like, oh, he's back. no, he's not.
Yeah.
And then he tried to come back again. I was like, this is not good. And when I guess it was the first game of the play-in that when he was eligible, like they thought he's back and he didn't play, you and I were like, this is not a good sign.
I did Nick Nurse discuss. He said he just can't.
He just can't.
And I felt bad for him because
it's a contract year.
And you know what? Can I just say this? Nick Nurse never got to see Melton 100%.
No, I think
because he was out injured. Yeah. And then when he came back, they asked him about Melton. And Nick Nurse wasn't, I don't see how he fits. You know, he's not really a primary ball handler. We got Maxey. He's not really the primary shooter for us. We have other guys. Like, he was just off of him. And I was like, man, he's not going to get a fair shake. But I think prior to him, I think Melton, and he's young. He's young. We talk about all these guys in their 30s. Melton, I think it's 25, 26.
Yeah, it's incredible.
He's young. I thought he was 30.
I equate D'Anthony Melton to Brandon Marsh. People have no idea how old these guys are. They think Brandon Marsh is 32. He's 25. They think D'Anthony Melton is 35, and he's 25. Yeah. They have no idea how old these guys are just because they've seen him around or they think that they just their look or whatever. But D'Anthony Melton is a great idea because you can get him for I would think. I mean, I don't know what a minimum contract for something like.
Yeah, but he would be a minimum.
But he would be like a minimum for a player like him. But he would be a minimum type of deal, a bet on myself type of contract, where it's going to be really, really team friendly. And I think that's something the Sixers are going to have to explore because he does fill out the bench very nicely. When you're looking for a nice wing player, a 3-and-D type of guy, I think. I mean, the only other option that you have two other ones that I'll run by you. Buddy Hield. I would think that contract the price has gone down.
It has. For me, it'd be very difficult for them to bring both those guys back, but I think another young guy would have to take that. But I'm okay if we get Paul George, if we can get Melton back and letting Buddy Hield walk.
Yeah. So Clayton is here with us. Thank you, Clayton, he's our producer for this stream. He brought up Buddy Hield's cap numbers. It was almost $20 million last year. I don't think he's going to get close to that, which is a shame because my screen went black.
Second most threes since he entered the league.
Yeah, since he entered the league. But you saw, he just didn't. And you wondered, was it the egg or the chicken which came first? Was it his poor shooting because he didn't get to play with Joel Embiid, or was it because Joel Embiid wasn't there that you know what I mean? Yep. Like.
You're right. He played most of the season without Joel.
He came on the scene. It was so great. And then all of a sudden, that's the reason he was here, was to space the court with Joel Embiid. And then Joel Embiid came back. It was like he disappeared. But in fairness, he disappeared before that. He really did come back down to earth.
Agree.
Because there were several games even before, like the couple weeks leading up to Joel Embiid's return, that you saw him kind of sink back down. All right. So Buddy Hield probably not coming back here. And the last one I'll give you is Cam Payne. Cameron Payne. Good old Cam. This is a tough one. Obviously, he's gotten in a little tiny bit of legal issues. I'd have to look up to see where they stand right now.
Yeah. But if we talk about pure talent and how he played, he was tremendous for the 76ers last year. He was, from the moment he set foot in this arena and put on that uniform, he was incredible for us. And then Kyle Lowry came, and we knew that he was kind of going to be the odd man out because Kyle Lowry is Nick Nurse's guy. As well as not just that, he's a champion.
Right.
He's a champion. He's going to do the little things you don't count on him.
Yeah.
And you see what happened. Cam Payne was trying to man out. But we did discuss before playoffs start, how was Nick Nurse going to keep Cam Payne out of the rotation, considering he was playing so well leading up to the playoffs. And then, as you see, started slowly but surely chopping away at minutes. So I like Cam Payne. Yes, he got legal issues recently. But I like him, but I don't know if Cam Payne will be willing to come again with Kyle Lowry. Yeah. When he knows that Kyle Lowry is Nick Nurse's guy.
Yeah, it's a small
I think he's a legitimate backup point guard in the NBA.
Agreed. So Clayton brought up his cap hits just under $2.1 million. So pretty cheap deal. He was just here on the 1-year deal, obviously. So going forward, you're looking at some more role players, like a KJ Martin. Would you bring a guy like that back? It's an energy type of guy.
I think KJ Martin's my guy. His father was a warrior. You should love battling with him. But I think he needs to go somewhere he can play. And Sixers are trying to compete for a championship, but he's not going to play here.
Yeah.
I think it'll be the same as last year where he didn't get no playing time. For me, I think he needs to go into another team where he's going to get minutes. Right now, I think he wouldn't get no minutes. I think he's in a situation he needs to play.
Yeah. So now we're looking at, that's just, I saw this earlier. John Clark also confirming that Sixers will be meeting with Paul George. He's having several meetings out there in California. He's going to meet with the Clips. He's going to meet with the Sixers. And I believe the other one was the Magic, which is interesting because 3 years ago, if you told me anyone, a name was going to meet with the Magic, and I was like, are they looking to go to Disney World for? Why in the world are you meeting for the Magic?
And if you're meeting with the Magic, you can take less money because of where you're at in the state of Florida.
That's right, because there is no state income tax for those that want to buy a house in Florida and claim that as your residence 6 months and a day out of the year. If you do, just call me. I'll watch it for the other 5 months and 29 days. But yeah, so it's interesting because the Magic are an up and coming team. They're a team on the rise. They're a team that has shown that they can compete. Obviously, Paolo Banchero makes them a really legitimate team.
He's legit, isn't he?
Yeah,
Amy?
I mean, watching him.
That young fella, nice.
He is. And we knew that, but like then you saw it up close. Like I know that you and I, we went down to go look at Wembanyama too, but just the stuff that Banchero does, his size belies the fact that he's able to do some of the things that he does. And the East, and I think that last year we all thought the West was better. And they at top to bottom they were. And I think you saw that when you saw the Mavs rise up and get there to the finals. The East, it was the Celtics, and then everybody else was playing for second. I don't see why that's changed now. It doesn't seem to have changed because the Celtics aren't going to do anything different. They have everybody that won them the championship. They were far and away the best team. They clinched the 1 seed before anybody else in the entire league clinched the playoff spot.
Good point.
So when you're looking at what the Knicks did, just from the jump, as far as re-signing their guys, OG and everybody else, and then making the trade for Mikal Bridges, to me, that screamed, we are here to compete with the Celtics. Everybody else be damned. It's the Celtics for us. We need wing players. We need physical guys to guard their wing players, right? Sixers have to be in that mindset, I would think, at this point, too. And I don't think it's a big surprise that they need the wing players. Who else can they go out there and get? Because we filled out maybe 7 or 8 guys. They're going to need more than that. I know that the top 2 are Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, and those are a great top 2. But I think you're going to need more. And if Paul George is the third, that's fine, as long as he can be a consistent third. I asked somebody, or someone asked me earlier, like, what if he averages? And they gave me the exact same numbers as Tobias Harris. I'm like, it's how they look, right? It's how the numbers look.
Exactly.
It's one thing to average 19 points. It's another thing, as you and I talk about at the halftime show, we look at our box score and I look at Mark, and Mark's like, yeah, it's not good because it'll be 0 for 3. Like, what? So the 19 points looks a lot different when you have a different way to look at it. So
it's a couple more people out there.
Can they compete with the Celtics as we're kind of making this roster out?
I think it's very important that we everybody out there listening know that Amy and myself are very honest. As now with this roster spot, no. With that being said, if we get Paul George, we get Kelly Oubre back, Maxey comes back top of his game, we got some other pieces, I think we have a chance because as you have seen this year, it's also about health. The best ability is availability. And with that being said, I look at what the New York Knicks did. Like, I'm a Philly person. Listen, when I seen they made that trade for Bridges where they sold their kidneys, they sold everything to the Nets to get him.
Could you believe it?
I was like, okay. I said, all right, they went
scrolling.
on.
I was like,
but
how many
then
picks
when
are
I
this?
seen they signed OG Anunoby, I said, oh.
Yeah.
To me, people could say Boston's the number 1 team in the East because they won a championship, but that Knicks team is ready to play because Julius Randle is coming back as well.
Yeah, that Knicks team is nice. I did just see this from, where's it? Kelly Iko from The Athletic. Nico Batum will not be returning to the Sixers. So I don't know if that means that he's going to go elsewhere. He wants to go back to LA, or if he's going to retire, which he had said at the beginning of the season last year when he was a Clipper. It wasn't like the Philadelphia, we didn't make him retire, everybody. He said this before his Clippers season. The one thing that I will miss, and Michael Evans says it too, I will miss his inbounds pass because that man has a beautiful inbounds. I will never forget that one inbounds. I think it was against the Spurs. And I was like, he had 2 of them. It's like, this is the greatest inbounds. And I was on the radio with Bob Cooney. He was like, I've never seen anybody fall in love with the inbounds. I'm like, well, when you see one that looks this good, it's love at first sight.
Whoa. I'm sorry. I hate to say, I see breaking news. I see my Turkish brother.
Furkan? That's from 2019.
I thought that was now.
That's why
you can't do that to us, Clayton.
That's why you can't.
Come on now. You're killing me, Clayton, with this.
He's doing that all day.
I started Turkish
No.
and everything. Listen,
you love yourself some Furkan Korkmaz.
We're going to practice my Turkish.
I think his NBA days are done. Mark.
Yeah, he might be the starting point guard for Fenerbahce.
Yeah.
Then Turkey next year.
Yeah, the best is that you know a team out there and you can rattle off all the Turkish teams.
Exactly.
Right,
so I mean, you know, and then you see this about Bobby Marks. Mavericks have $16 million trade exception created from Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yes, that's a big move.
Yeah,
it's interesting just because all these teams, I mean, they're just trying to make room for. So you're seeing what Bobby Marks has. So let's read it out to everybody in case you missed it. Mavericks have a little over 16 million trade exception created from the Hardaway Jr. trade. Lakers and Clips have just under 13 million as far as that's how their mid-level would be unless a sign and trade, which is a little bit wonky because he opted out, but you could still work something out. Okay. And the Sixers would have 14 million room if he signs with them. So if Paul George signs, so that's what I'm talking about. They have room if they sign him to that big contract, but they don't have as much, right? I mean, they have $65 million this year or thereabouts. And so he would take up a large chunk of that. And then you have 14 million this year alone. Now there's plenty of time to kind of get some stuff done, but you would have a lot of those non-guaranteed contracts would go away. The likes of Paul Reed, that would have to go away. You would have to really explore some interesting moves. But it does beg the question, and you and I are talking about these teams that are winning titles. They have 3 elite level players. They have, guys that are MVPs when you look at a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum. Give it to one of them. I don't care which one. I would say Tatum, but you can argue me with Brown, and I'll say yes. Then you have the other one of that, and then you have the next level guy who's also an all-star in Drew Holiday. And then you have some really great role players up there. Let's go to 2 years ago. Elite role players. Derek White is an elite role player. Let's go look at the Nuggets, which I think is probably the closest corollary between the Sixers. They have a big man and they have a great guard. Obviously, 2 completely different big men and 2 completely different guards that they both did spend 1 year at Kentucky. That's where it ends. It's just nothing else the same. But then they had great players in Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon.
Yes.
Not to mention some other guys. Right?
Lengthy players.
Oh, yeah, super athletic, talking about length and athleticism. So you're looking at some really there you go. So Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is another really interesting player as far as length, supreme athlete, and a very good defender, right? I mean, this is a guy, KCP, who has shown that he can win. He's shown that at different stops. I'm speaking of with the Nuggets, and obviously he's played previously with the Lakers. He is a guy that could come here and I think would make a real difference as far as an elite role player. And that's what I think the Sixers have to have. They'd have to get him in some kind of, very creative deal. Just looking at it, if you sign Paul George and then you also want KCP. I think if they sign Paul George, it does mean Brandon Ingram is probably out because you can't afford everybody.
And then Brandon Ingram also has to be a sign and trade because he still has 1 more year in his deal. So I don't know, like we said, we have nothing really to give.
I think everybody watching probably knows how this works, but in case they don't, Mark, you can speak to this too. The NBA, it's not like baseball where you can just come on, everybody, just sign everybody and everybody gets a deal and you get a deal and you get a deal and you can just go crazy and spend $500 million. That's not how it works. Obviously, you have to match money when you're talking about sign and trades and different things like that. So KCP, though, if they got creative and were able to bring him on board, so then you'd have Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Then your kind of role players might be less, but your 4 are really good.
Really good. And I think that's important. I think going with 3 major superstars, I think Boston showed that you don't need that no more. You don't need, if you have 2 legitimate all-star, superstar kind of players, and you got 3 adequate role players surrounding them, that's all you need. You don't need to find that 3rd big star. But with this case, you have this much solid space as the 76ers do. You're going to go after the best available player, and that's him. We talk about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He's an elite player, elite defender. We talk about his athleticism. He's above average shooter, and he can get you some buckets when you need to get buckets. But I look at it like this. I compare him to Kelly Oubre. I think they're very similar type players. Now, which one I prefer? I think as I've had my eyes on Kelly Oubre this whole season, I would prefer Kelly. But I think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is not a cancellation prize either that I wouldn't want to let go. I like him too. So, and then can I bring up this sneaky name? That's an older guy. What about DeMar DeRozan?
Yeah, talk about I love that we're mentioning these guys. I want to say for Mark and I, these guys being 34, 35, they're older for basketball, not for life. Okay, we're not offending anybody out there. Those guys are younger than either one of us talking to you right there. And I'm saying they're saying like the guy's old at 35. I'm like, oh, he's old. What am I? Put me in the grave then.
Exactly.
Mark is already he's already at the old man's home, I guess, apparently. So it looks like we got about a little over $15 million for KCP's contract this year. So if you could really get something creative, he really would be able to come here with a Paul George. But you're right. I mean, he is a similar type of player as Kelly Oubre. Is the grass greener? I don't know. He's a good shooting guard. I think that he's a really nice player. I think he's a really nice piece on a team that wants to contend for a title. And I think that other people know that. I mean, it's not like it's a secret. And he's been there. And he's been there, obviously, as I mentioned, he's played on teams that have vied for the title, won the title, and made deep postseason runs. So it'll be interesting to see like where that goes forward. The Paul George news, you wonder how judicious he's going to be about this. Like, is he really going to sit there and meet with everybody? All right, I'm going to meet with this team and this team. And or do you think it's just about, all right, I'm going to meet with you guys and whoever gives me the most money? Or is it fit for him?
You know, the interesting thing, when you see the free agents and you see the guy, the meeting with the different personnel, the different teams, you know, when you like Paul George, you already know what kind of player he is. He knows your team. You know, does he want to go to a team like Orlando has a bunch of young guys? I don't see that in Paul George now. Because respectfully, Orlando's a very good team. I think they outperform with they outkick their coverage like this year that they thought they were going to do. But I don't know if he wants to be that older guy, be that leader in the locker room and bringing up these young guys. And Florida's beautiful, though. I used to live there. But that's something I will question. I think it's truly between the Philadelphia 76ers and Los Angeles Clippers. And if you do it that way and you say, okay, I can get an additional year from the Sixers because they're willing to do it, then you got to ask. I believe he's from Fresno, California, if I'm not mistaken. If that's the case,
he's definitely from out that way.
If I don't want to leave California to go to Philadelphia for extra $40 million a year, $40 million, that might kind of get you moving to me. But you know, the other thing is he's comfortable there. He wakes up in beautiful weather, the team he played for, you know. But I've also heard him kind of like take some heat for not really sticking up for Kawhi during podcasts and conversations, you know, because people mention that Kawhi's always injured.
Yeah.
And then realistically, can you count on Kawhi being there majority of the season? So then you may be back in the same thing. I think it's between Philadelphia and them. I hear Golden State's trying to get into it too, but that'd be a sign and trade. I'm liking the Philly or the Clipper connection. I like Paul George. I want him here. It's the question is he at 34 willing to uproot and move from his home state to Philadelphia?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch because there are a lot of good pieces out there. As far as the big fish, it's LeBron James and really Paul George as far as actual free agents go. And then all the other names that we can bring up, like a Jimmy Butler type, of those would be trades or whatever. Another name that I just saw Shams has something on is Isaiah Hartenstein, a guy that Sixers fans are going to close their eyes and think of him rebounding left, right, and center.
That floater.
That's all. That's all he did.
Yes.
He had a very simple game, but I didn't hate it. After a while, I did hate it, but I was like, objectively, I'm like, I get it. You know your bread and butter, and you're going to roll with it. The Knicks can't bring him back. I mean, I think they would be well over the luxury tax if they did. I guess they could and just say, whatever, we're going to pay it. But I'm pretty sure he's going to get a decent offer. I saw Shams has something that Oklahoma City Thunder are interested in him. He's a guy that made, I think, a lot of people raise their eyebrows and thought, hey, well, this might be something fun to have. And I think for people looking at, and we have to here in Philadelphia, backup center positions, he was a guy that has come up as far as maybe he could be a possibility because he was a free agent. And when the Knicks signed OG, you thought, well, they couldn't, there was no way they could be able to re-sign him. If they aren't able to get Isaiah Hartenstein because he's snapped up by somebody else, who would be a backup center? Because that's really, if they sign Paul George, that means Paul Reed is probably out because of the way they can't make the money work. Who would you like to be the backup center?
You know, I think we have a couple of options. You know, I believe, I like Hartenstein. He played us tremendous in the playoffs. I think he upped his value. But I think, when you're a free agent, it's all about timing. How many teams have money to pay you when you're a free agent? And it's not as many as some people will think this year. Sixers being one, they have a lot. But he might command a little bit more than we have to offer. And when you play backup to Joel Embiid, that's much different playing backup to Who you playing backup to? You playing the big
Right.
Chet. Chet is playing center, but he's
Yeah.
really a 4. Then you know you're gonna get more minutes at OKC, and you're probably gonna play on 2 contending teams with a Philly or OKC. He would probably choose OKC. But then I look at the best big man backup the Joel has ever had. What about Drummond?
Yeah.
Drummond's out there, and even though Drummond used to be a max player years ago, but never got his opportunity, he was our best backup, and he had a chance to come back here, but chose to go to Chicago because he knew he was going to get more minutes. So that's another thing. If he doesn't get the contract he think he deserves, I would love to have Drummond back. I would absolutely love it. But now, let me change the subject real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way the salary cap space is working out, I wouldn't be surprised if. So be honest, I really don't see Paul Reed back. Respectfully,
yeah.
Whether we sign Paul George or not, I believe, to me, that they can get similar production from a young kid that's coming in that's really young. They can get similar production and athleticism and bouncy legs from another young guy for a quarter or a tenth of the price of Paul Reed's contract. Do I love Paul Reed? Absolutely. I love everyone. But I think the Sixers are looking at it also financially. What's Paul Reed giving us? Can we draft like a young kid from UCLA we just did on the minimum and have him play a similar role? Yes. So if we can't find another big, the backup Joel, which we have to, I think they go with that to save money.
Yeah, of course, Sixers did draft a center, Bona from UCLA. I don't think that he's fully prepared to roll in there. And the thing is, the dilemma
as a third string, not the backup.
Exactly. The dilemma you have when you have a backup for Joel Embiid is, do you go completely traditional with a center like Andre Drummond and go, all right, we are just going to crush it on the boards. We're going to get putbacks if we can. We're just going to go low post center. Or do you try to get a guy that's somewhat similar to Joel Embiid? There is no one that plays the game. Exactly.
Thanos is not on Earth.
So that's what's so interesting to me, because I go back to what the Nuggets do. They don't try to get somebody that plays like Jokic for the backup, but when you're also only looking for like a couple of, 10, 12 minutes a game. With the Sixers, I think you do have to prepare for maybe 15 to 20 games without Joel Embiid. So do you lean towards more trying to find a shooting center, a guy that could stretch the court just a little bit, maybe not super traditional, but also not Joel Embiid, like somewhere in the middle? I don't know who that guy is. I'm just making a person up in my brain right now, but I feel like there could be some thought process there, because I feel like you have to go in for an 82-game season and just off the jump, even if there is no injuries, just the way you want to rest him, because it's all about the playoffs for this team.
Absolutely.
20 games off the jump without even thinking, no Joel Embiid, who you got? You know what I mean?
It's so, and you gotta, and that's the thing, when you're looking at it that way, do you really want a guy 29, 30 to back up Joel?
Right.
Like, that's the thing. Like, if that guy's older, then you have both your centers hurt. Whether he's a traditional guy like a Drummond or Hartenstein, or he's a floor spacer. You see Muscala was getting minutes at the 5 for teams because of his ability. He's 6'10". And the thing is, I seen Muscala down at the NBA Top 100 camp where my son Sharif was at. He was coaching. He's like 6'8", 190.
Yeah.
He's playing center because his ability to shoot the ball, and he's smart and taking charges. So I think you don't have to try to find a similar player. You need to find a durable player that's going to be able to give you minutes.
Let's just recap just real quick. Mark just kind of snuck in there a little bit that Sharif Jackson was at the top 100 camp. That's not top 100 in Philadelphia, folks. That's top 100 in the nation. That is an elite camp to be invited to. So big shout out to Sharif for that opportunity. I'm sure Shane will get his, as I know all the boys will eventually, Yeah, I mean, do just each year, just like, the next one up, they're just looking for the Jackson boys to go to the top 100 camp. Come on.
Pretty much. It's a good place to be.
Yeah. Sammy's going to be there next.
Sammy's already in his class top 40.
So there you go. See, he already surpassed that. Shane's just sitting there going like, when's my turn, buddy?
Exactly.
Well, Shane needs to get to high school first. That's step one right there.
Facts.
Step one. But yeah, so it's interesting to see when you look at the whole free agency. And it was kind of like, and I'll get your thoughts on this since I haven't talked to you about the draft, but the draft was, quote, a down year draft. And I think it was a down year for a lot of reasons. One being there was a lot of foreign player interest, which here in America, we're not, besides seeing these guys on YouTube highlights, which, let's be honest, my YouTube highlights look phenomenal. I don't know, people didn't really know much about them. And so you're looking at the draft overall, and I thought the free agency kind of period was a similar type of vibe, like not that great. There's some names that are down there that you thought, oh, okay, they're all right, but no really big names. overall, do you think it's enough out there between some, lower level type of role player free agents and maybe some trades that can build the Sixers a roster? Because I really think you're looking at like a 2-year period where they want to try to get this thing done going to the finals next year or the year after.
I think people spoke a lot of negative regarding the draft. Yes, the talent level may have been down from previous years or what's coming out next year, but when you looked at the draft, and I think the draft had different purposes. You could find some guys ready-made to come in.
There was talent in there.
Or you can find some guys that they're 2 years away from being a year away. So you have to understand that. And you got it's also a numbers game. Like Springer was never really going to get minutes here because it was a number game. We had too many veteran guards at his position when you try to win a championship. I think that's important to take note. I think this year's draft was a draft that teams are drafting these younger guys. A lot of these European guys you've seen are extremely 18, 19, or not about to turn 19. Really young guys. They know that we can get him, work him out, let him play two-way contract in the G League a little bit, and then he'll be ready to maybe get some minutes the next year. And I think that's how teams is looking at it.
What about, and this is the name that just popped up because he opted into his $4 million contract for the Clippers because the Clippers are trying to trade him, Russell Westbrook. This is a player I used to love, to be honest.
I still love him, Amy.
But I mean, ferocious. Talk about right?
But do I like him in Philadelphia, Amy? I don't like him in Philadelphia.
Right?
I think the Philadelphia fans would absolutely love him. But I think as a player, I think his inability to shoot the three ball, I think will limit the spacing when you have Joel Embiid.
Yeah, it's tough.
And I think that'll be tough. But I think he's an adequate player. I think it was a smart move for him to opt in. As you see, there's not much space for players out here. And he's also looked at like you love him or you hate him. And for me, I love him because he plays extremely hard.
So hard.
From the beginning to the end. But his inability to shoot the ball, I think, hurts his value this year.
Yeah, it is crazy because I don't think there's anybody really, when you think about overall from the start to finish of their career, whenever it is over for Russell Westbrook, that gives everything they had. But you either hate him or you love him.
Yep.
And here, like, you hate him, but then if you'd be the type of player that if he was wearing the uniform, you'd be like, nope, that's our guy. Like, you better not talk smack about him. That's our guy. But yeah, I think that it's kind of interesting because these are all players that are like, some of the best players of all time, certainly some of the best players in the last 20, 30 years. And we're seeing like the Chris Paul, they waived him. He was owed $30 million out there with Golden State and they waived him. Obviously they're not going to pay him that money. I think they were trying to work out some kind of deal where they could see if he could sign somewhere else. But the Chris Paul's towards the end of his career, the Russell Westbrook towards the end of his career. I mean, it's kind of, I don't want to say LeBron James at the end of his career because I have no idea when that career is going to, it's the longest prime I've ever seen of anyone in my life. The man walks out of like whatever cold storage is like, I'm going to drop 25 on you tonight. And we take such for granted. It's hard to drop 25 points in an NBA game, but for LeBron James, it isn't. But I mean, you're really seeing the end kind of a certain era with these guys, the Klay Thompsons. Obviously, Steph Curry still has it, but to what extent? It's just interesting to me that when you think about what the league is going to look like, it really is turning into a young man's game, and maybe the Sixers can take advantage of that.
I agree, and I got something for you. Chris Paul has value, and if I'm looking at Klay, if I'm looking at Chris, I'm looking at these guys, I bet you Chris is willing to come off the bench and be a role player on the team playing 22 minutes a game. He'd be a high-price role player, but I think he's more willing. I think the thing that's going to hurt some of these guys, I think Chris understands like where he is. Well, I should be a star. I should be an all-star. But he understands maybe I'm just not that no more. I can see my guy Chris accepting that. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to go back to some names. Klay Thompson is really going to regret not signing that extension that Golden State offered him. I don't think Klay is going to sign for half of what he thinks he's going to sign for, whether it's Dallas, whether it's here, no matter where it is. I think he's not going to get – they was trying to give him $25 million a year. He didn't want it. He wanted the max.
That's crazy.
And I don't think he's going to get more than $8, $9 million a year.
Yeah. And the Mavericks are an interesting team.
Yeah. And they have a little bit of money to
give. I think we saw it. They had it earlier, 15 million or 14.8 or whatever it was. So they've got some money as far as that would go. That would be an interesting move for him. He would stay in the West, which I think is helpful.
And he's not a ball handler, a guy that needs to dominate the ball.
Which is good because
they
got
two of the most dominating ball handlers out there. He's okay just sitting back and just, all right, I'm going to stay here and lick my chops waiting for these shots. And he's also giving something to defensive end as well.
Yeah. How about side note of that? Like, you have two primary ball handlers and Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And it actually worked. Like, it did not work when they first started there at all, but it worked. And then you go up to Minnesota, and that didn't work at all either with, Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns, and then it ended up working. Obviously, that you do learn and you adapt. So anytime I think about what I think should be the, the recipe or whatever it's going to be for an NBA champion, and they just go and rewrite everything that. Because two primary ball handlers usually means you have no primary ball handlers. But down there in Dallas, they did. I think they just ran out of gas, unfortunately, in that one. But I do want to get your thoughts before I think we're just checking. There's nothing really going on in free agency. Don't think that I'm not giving you guys any news or whatever. Sixers are going to meet with, just a recap, Sixers are going to meet with Paul George. He's going to meet with the Clippers, the Magic, and the Sixers. It's all happening in California. I'll expect it to happen tonight. I don't know if it's going to be like a round table until you open the door, and then like Daryl Morey walks in and Elton Brand, and then they walk out after their 30 minutes. There's a little bell, like a speed dating thing. I'm not entirely sure how it is. And then the Magic come in, and then the Clips come in. Don't know how it's going to go, but hopefully, something comes of that, because I know the Sixers are putting, their eggs in quite a number of baskets. And I talked to Daryl Morey after the draft just about this process. And he talks about how you have to have plan A, plan B, plan C, of course, because you don't know where everything else, it's not just you, right? But the draft, first of all, they were trying hard to trade that 16 pick. And it was interesting. Daryl Morey said they had two different offers. One was a very interesting player and to move back in the draft. And I looked up who was back in the draft, who was in the 20s. And I saw the Knicks sitting there. And I thought, who would have been an interesting player for the Knicks to offer up? And you mentioned him earlier. And I don't know if this is not me reporting anything, but it's just maybe, I don't know. Julius Randle was a name that I came away with.
I can see that.
Because he was in the last year of his contract. And I thought maybe that would have been a player that would be interesting to me if I was the Sixers. And I guess the deal just wasn't enough. Obviously, he's coming off injury and everything like this. A pretty bad injury, but a very viable player, a good player, an athletic player, an all-star player. But did you like the pick at 16 with Jerry McCain?
Jerry McCain, we did a breakdown on him. Jerry McCain is a combo guard, but more on the ball point guard.
Yeah.
He can shoot the lights out the ball. So he's going to translate well in the game of shooting when it comes to the NBA. And he sets up a lot of his opportunities of scoring the ball by his shot, because as soon as he catches the ball, you're running at him at full speed, which allows him to get to the mid-range area to shoot his mid-range shot. Now, is he going to be the play above the rim and play in around the paint area finish of a guys? I don't see that.
Yeah.
Because he's very athletic, but I don't know if he's athletic enough to be trying to finish around guys around the rim. So he's going to be a shooter as well as a mid-range catch and shoot guy. But, he also is, I think people question his foot speed a little bit, the guard, elite players in the NBA, but he finds a way to get deflections. He was one of the top in his conference in deflections this past year. So I think that's something he maybe has instinct. A lot of people have instinct when it comes to defense, and he's definitely one of them. So I think he's a good player that can maybe provide some kind of spark off the bench, handling the ball, keeping the team, and just hitting open shots. And a lot of times when you're a young guy, you should never forget how to defend and how to shoot the ball. And anything else, you're just going to wait your turn to give an opportunity. If you do those things, you master and you flourish in hitting shots and defending, it's always playing time available for you.
Yeah, very good shooting numbers, over 41% from three, a decent amount too. It wasn't like he only shot the ball a couple times from long range. And when I asked Daryl Morey, was that like the most, as far as like metric, you have so many metrics that they go with. And he's like, yeah, shooting is always going to translate and always going to be needed in the league when you think about what they really want as far as, especially on this team, but anywhere in the NBA. It's a shooter's league now. The only issue I think I ever had, and it's not Jerry McCain specific, is the fact that we have two, 6'2" guards, 6'2", 6'3" point guards. And you and I have always been on the train of Tyrese Maxey off the ball. Like he plays better. You frees him up for a lot of stuff. You mentioned Jerry McCain's speed. Like his speed's okay. No one's good. There's like one other person that's Tyrese Maxey's speed, and it's De'Aaron Fox.
Yes.
And he's all the way out there in Sacramento. So
I'm still trying to get those guys on the track to have them race.
You know what? Just put him at the end line to end line and just say go. And then also make a razzle dazzle play at the rim. But I think it could work. Obviously, he's going to be probably coming off the bench. I don't think there's any surprise off that. But that leaves, a point guard position for the Sixers to have a starter or an off guard if you want to have Tyrese Maxey start at point guard. I think they're best functioning with a high level, big point guard, and I know I've said it before and I'll say it again. The perfect one was silly Ben Simmons, and then he decided he hated basketball. That was the perfect one to go with Joel Embiid because he was big and he facilitated, and I'm going to talk myself into being angry.
Defender.
Yes, an excellent defender, an all-NBA defender. But when you're thinking about guards and they're going to need one, who would you go with right now to be the backcourt for the Sixers?
If I need another guard to go right now, you mean just throwing names out there,
just
or somebody
any name? If you have your, it's an open book. Anybody you want.
And we're not talking about Paul George. We're not talking about free. We're not talking about free like that.
No.
I think I'll need Kelly Oubre back.
Yeah.
I really need Kelly Oubre back. I think him playing with that 2-guard spot with Maxey, I think I need him back. I need him in a Sixers uniform because his ability to be effective in a different way than 90% of the guards are now. Great size, great length. I thought he was very good defensively. His activity, his deflections, his speed, his size. I thought he was wonderful. I need Kelly Oubre back.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names out here, some of our free agents. We mentioned a lot. We mentioned Paul George. We mentioned Caldwell Pope. We mentioned Brandon Ingram, but that's going to be tricky. DeMar DeRozan kind of mentioned a little bit. But I mean, Kelly Oubre to me is important. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
DeMar DeRozan is interesting because obviously he's a mid-range guy. So for me, that's a little bit not problematic,
but
like
79 games last year.
Which I love. Like I love that stuff. I love that, like these guys that are durable. But when you've got Joel Embiid out there in the mid-range game, you're like, all right, there's only so much court out there.
Let me ask you this,
you find a way to work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the coach's job to find ways to make it work. But let me ask you this, though. We talk about Jimmy Butler. We talk about DeRozan. I would prefer to have DeRozan more than Jimmy. Jimmy's missed so many games in the last 3 years.
Yeah, he had a lot of problems last year.
I not just last year, the year before that, and the year before that. But DeMar DeRozan has been an Iron Man. And he averaged 24 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. DeRozan. If I had to take my choice between, I'm gonna say something might get me hurt, but if I'm gonna say Jimmy or him, I want DeMar.
Yeah.
DeMar to who? I want
DeMar
him.
to who?
Mm-hmm.
DeMar to what? Yeah, I mean, your point is valid. And the thing is, as soon as I say things like, oh, there's a mid-range you can't have with Joel Embiid, then I think about what the Mavericks did and what the Timberwolves did. And you find a way to work. You find a way to make that work. Ideally, you have a big guard that can facilitate and does whatever. You have Tyrese Maxey play off the ball. These are all ideal situations. I don't know what they would end up being because these are talking in the ideal, or if we live in a vacuum, which we do not. So I'm looking at, Clayton pulled up the as far as the deals for next year. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's 35 years old. He made a little over $28.5 million last year. I don't think he's going to get that. I think he realizes he's not going to get that. His cap hit right now, his cap hit for next year would be 42. That can't be right. Is it because they have he has the bird rights? No, he's an unrestricted free agent. Oh, the luxury tax. That's why you add them two together. And that's why you get it 28.6 plus 28.6. I guess that's why you're getting there's a percentage of that because of the league's luxury tax. He would take up a certain percentage. That's a hefty price there for DeMar DeRozan.
I don't think DeMar is going to get nowhere near that. I think he understands that. That's why I have a feeling he's going to end up in either a Laker or a Clippers uniform. Is that what happens, everybody? Towards the end, you turn 34, and then it's like, oh, the two teams that are interested in you are the two teams in LA. That's what we've got for you. Are you surprised that LeBron isn't doing more right now? That it appears it's just gonna stay there on a new deal? No, I think LeBron is understand. He's just basking in the ambiance. He understands, he's the GOAT. Sorry, I want to say that because Amy doesn't like when I say it.
No, it's Brian Brennan. He's not here today. Okay. Clayton can say whatever he wants, but he doesn't have a microphone. So.
Exactly. But listen,
you got two LeBron apologists.
Exactly. I just really think LeBron understands the way he is in that. Wow, just stay where you are. I love the fact that he said he would take a pay cut to get another dynamic guard. That's pretty big time, especially when the highest paid player in the league for 20 years straight. So of course,
I feel like he's always taking a pay cut, which is amazing.
True. Exactly. So. I think that's pulling a card out of Tim Duncan's book. So with that being said, LeBron is still going to be LeBron, but he needs help. AD, I thought AD played great last year
when he was on the court,
and it still wasn't there. What's his nickname? Street clothes.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate, but it's unfortunate that LeBron gets so much hate. But he does the right thing. He plays the right way, and every player that's ever played with him, except for Kyrie, love playing with him, and I think with that all being said, it is.
Did you mind the Bronny James drafting?
I didn't mind it. I'm a father, and I think as our duty as parents to put our kids in the best position to succeed, and if they can be under my wing and learn from me. Like every 90% of CEOs and CFOs, that's what they do. They hire their kids, or they hire their relatives,
be honest.
and they help them on the way. So people can hate because people just hate LeBron.
Yeah,
people just literally hate LeBron, and I think it's a good move.
That's what it is. I mean, it's so funny. If we're like screaming,
and this is a business.
Yeah, if we're screaming about nepotism, if we're screaming about nepotism, like look at like all the owners and like look who runs the front offices, and let's just be honest. Like, come on. I mean, we all know what happens. I didn't have any problem with it. I mean, it was a 50-something pick. It was a guy that you were going to take. You don't even know if that guy was ever going to play for you. I think that it was a great move. And if you told me that he's going to keep the best player in your uniform and that player happy, I would draft my dog if it helped. Like, I would care less if he never even suited up ever, because it meant keeping LeBron James. So basically, with that pick, you got LeBron James. So
but can I say this though? Can I say my one disappointment in the draft?
Yes.
My one disappointment, first round, second round. My one disappointment is in the Boston Celtics not drafting Bronny before the Lakers.
Yeah, that would have been so.
Me, I was so mad. I literally got up and stood next to him going, draft him.
Can you imagine?
Like, draft him. I wanted the drama to it. Listen. David Stern's turnover in his grave, because he would have wanted that.
Yeah, that would have
brought so much more drama in the NBA. We drafted him. They give us 2 first-round picks for him.
Exactly.
Oh, you know what? He's not even going to play in the G League. We're going to sit him home. Like let
just a
LeBron,
really,
let the agent be mad. Chris, what's his name?
Rich Paul.
Rich Paul was calling teams, you bet not draft him. We're like, oh, really? Watch this, and I'm going to get a draft. I'm going to draft him before the Lakers do, and I'm going to hold him ransom. You want him to come give me something for him. You know what I mean?
Hey, so happy for those of you who don't like Tobias Harris, happy No More Tobias Harris Day. I guess for those of you scoring at home, it means officially Tobias Harris is no longer a Sixer. He has gotten some interest. Keith Pompey reporting free agency interest from the Pistons, where he used to play, the Jazz, the Spurs, and the Mavericks. Spurs is an interesting choice.
I can see Mavericks too.
Mavericks, I can see
the Mavericks. That'd be a good fit for him.
Okay, how mad are people going to be if he goes somewhere and actually like plays an entire year at the level that he? Yeah, and
becomes the best 3-and-D guy in the league. Oh, that would
takes more than 5 shots a game.
Yeah,
we will lose our minds, people. We will lose our minds.
Oh my God,
we will lose our minds.
He couldn't play here though. He would have to. He's sick.
Oh
and stay in Dallas.
Every game, whoever he plays for, just if he's having a good season, just sit that one out, because it will not go well for you. The amount of crumble cookies that will show up, the amount of nonsense that people will say and do, and I will be here for it. I will back up our fans because they earned it. I can't imagine. The thing is, Tobias Harris is a very nice guy.
Incredible human being.
Yes, wonderful person. Anybody that's ever met him, I know fans that have seen him out, like they saw him at resorts when he was on vacation. They've seen him in and around the city. They've seen him like out at different things. So friendly, so nice. Every time I've had interactions with him, exceptionally professional and friendly. But the basketball was beyond frustrating. Yes. So I can separate the fact that he is a nice person, and I hope that he does well with his life. I just don't want him to do well on the basketball court when he didn't do well. It's like when Al Horford came on, like, what kind of sleeper agent was that?
Yes.
That
came
was
here,
ridiculous.
Okay, then let me throw a fit so I can get out of here.
He completely forgot how to play basketball for an entire season, goes back to Boston, and is like, oh, this is it? You dribble this way, or you put it in that?
It goes in the basket. Oh, sorry.
My bad. I forgot that for the last 365 days of my life. Ridiculous is what that was. We're approaching an hour here, and there's not much else kind of moving on. We're looking at, there's the guys that we've mentioned, a lot of guys opting out, a lot of guys getting their contracts kind of waived. I did see that Luke Cornett re-signing, I guess it was, for the Celtics. The Celtics have pretty much everybody still back. And they didn't even really have, it was a 1-year deal to return to the Celtics. They didn't even have Kristaps Porzingis. Let's really be honest.
Yes.
He didn't really play all that much. And they still just rolled through the title. I thought that the Mavs would have given them a little bit better effort, but Luka was on his last leg. He literally was dragging that entire team across the finish line. But the Celtics appear to be, once again, the team to beat, and you just wonder what the Sixers need to do to be able to compete with them. And they're going to have to get a guard. A guard has to happen. You got Tyrese Maxey. You probably have a wing player in Kelly Oubre or KCP. Maybe you've got another one in Paul George, and then you've got Joel Embiid. So you're still missing a guard. There's got to be a guard out there that they can get on the cheap that's viable, because I just named 3 guys and they're all basically forwards. You still need to have a guard, a tall guard, a point guard nonetheless. And even though we love even though we love Kyle Lowry, I don't think you can rely on Kyle Lowry for an entire season as a starting point guard. That's a lot to ask for a guy that's going to be almost 39 years old.
Agree. I agree with you. Everything you just said. We have to get younger, but we have to understand, like the way our salary cap, we sign Paul George or somebody in that money. Believe it or not, we're going to have to sign a lot of young guys, because we got to fulfill this roster. And a lot of these older guys are coming in asking for a little bit more money. I think guys have to want to play with Maxey and Embiid and understand, all right, if me and somebody else comes here, we have an opportunity to dethrone the Boston Celtics. Let me take a minimum deal. And I believe it or not, I think there's going to be a lot of players like that. We mentioned another name I see him here, Gordon Hayward. I know people say, oh, I don't remember him. But Gordon Hayward was ready to come and contribute last year for OKC. He didn't get an opportunity. So that's going to be one that's looking probably with mine going to a winning team for a league minimum, a veteran minimum. So that's a name to keep in mind, 2 players like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds.
You go down this list, and we're looking at a list of free agents. You see Markelle Fultz as a point guard down there. You see Tyus Jones is a point guard down there. Again, these are all kind of guys. Markelle Fultz, even though I think he does enjoy his time here and he remembers it finally, which I think is a win for everybody.
I'm sorry. I see a name there that I think will fit.
You see Monte Morris?
No. I see this one.
Kyle Anderson.
What do you think about Slow-Mo?
I like Kyle Anderson. I like how you call him Slow-Mo, though.
That's his name. His nickname. He was 12 years old.
Exactly. He's rebounding, I think, really would help. I think the physical presence. I think the one thing that we saw from the Sixers this last go-round, the Knicks played hard, man. They played really hard. And the Sixers just didn't have the bodies. They didn't have the bodies to go up against those guys, the OG Anunobys, Isaiah Hartenstein. And then think about Julius Randle, big physical body. He wasn't even in there. Josh Hart, not the biggest physical guy, but he plays that way. These guys really played hard.
He's a 6'4", 7-footer.
Exactly. And he was diving after every ball, and just the way that they play is a very physical nature. So you figure you're going to have to compete with the Knicks and the Celtics this year. Yeah. What's Andre Drummond? I'm in the mood for a Philly cheesesteak, Andre Drummond. Come on through. Hey, this kind of stuff, I love this. I'm here for it,
listen,
by the way.
Listen, my guy Drummond. Listen, I'm going to take you to Max's, of course, with security. I'm going to take you to Max's, get you the best Philly cheesesteak there is. People say DeSandro, they can say whoever, Ishkabibbles, Jim's, whatever. But Max's at Broad and Erie, brother. I'm going to take you. I have my guys. We'll come give us security and get you a great Philly cheesesteak. Come on back, brother. Come on back.
That's a tip for everybody scoring at home, really, to be honest. What is this emoji he has with it, though? I can't even tell what the emoji is.
Oh, hugging. 2 people hugging.
Oh, 2 people
hugging. Is that him and Joel? Is that a hint? Is that him?
That is absolutely a hugging emoji.
Yeah.
So this is what we've resorted to. In 2024, we're like trying to decipher tweets and what people are saying, and if he likes cheesesteaks or he's just trolling us, because that's what Joel Embiid used to do. This is where we're at.
Max is terrible. I'm sorry. I ain't cut you off. Somebody at the bottom say Max's is terrible. You are out your mind, bro.
Yeah.
Max's is great. But now listen, let me tell you another reason why I want Drummond to come here. Because he was Shreve coach at the NBA Top 100 camp, and he let Cayenne.
It's a deal.
Is it?
Shams, free agent center Andre Drummond plans to sign a 2-year deal, $10+ million. Boom.
Let me do the math.
Boom.
So that means it gives us 4 if we sign Drummond? Ooh.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry, as I'm reading, it was like 10 seconds ago.
So he dropped the first. He beat Shams and Woj. Go ahead, Drummond. Take the power back into the players, my guy.
Yeah, he did. He dropped it 4 minutes ago.
Yeah. See, that's what you're talking about. Player empowerment. They took it back from Woj and shit.
I like when those guys do that. They're like, I'm going to break my own story.
Yes.
So that's a good deal. That's a good deal. So a lot of people were wondering. Andre Drummond, it will be the backup center. The best backup center is Mark, I think so eloquently,
ever for Joel,
that certainly Joel Embiid's ever had. 2-year, $10+ million deal with the Sixers. And he credits Andre Drummond when he was here. He credits the Sixers, and specifically at the time it was Doc Rivers, for giving him a chance to be a starter, because he played like a starter. And he obviously, when you're here and you're a center, you're not just going to play 10, 12 minutes every now and again. You're going to get whole chunks of time. And I think he credited, I remember him saying it specifically, credited the Sixers and Doc Rivers for giving him basically a new lease on his career.
And he had unbelievable numbers as a backup.
Great numbers.
Like, if we had him in this uniform this year, things might have been a little different here. But, he wasn't. But now he's back, and that's all we're going to do.
So that is the first chip that is fallen. Obviously, that would be, so it's 2 years, 10 plus. I mean, a little over $5 million. Obviously, just, obviously, I don't know exactly the terms of the deal, but you're looking at $5 million. Still plenty of room. Let's pull up his stats. Where are his rebounds? There they go. So when he was with the Sixers, those are good rebounding numbers for the Sixers right there. 6.1 defensive 2 rebounds, assists. Almost 3 offensive rebounds, which are big. Yep. So that's really after that Knicks series, all I care about now are offensive rebounds. Yes. It's like it's the biggest thing that in the history of the world, because they got crushed on the boards for 2 games, which really made a difference in that series. Yep. But obviously for Brooklyn, he went to the Brooklyn Nets right after that, in the trade, and then obviously signed with the Bulls for the last 2 seasons. He was there last year and the year before. So Andre Drummond is coming back here to Philadelphia. That was a move. It was interesting because you and I talked about this at the trade deadline in the season. Mm-hmm. The Bulls were clearly not going anywhere, and
they trade no one,
which was the weirdest thing. The only one people wanted Caruso. People wanted Levine, kinda. At least they thought about trying to take flyers. He was comparing, obviously he was injured, but I feel like his name was not even brought up anymore.
Agree.
And Drummond was thought of to. Drummond was a possibility for the Sixers, and I think they wanted a first round and a second round. They wanted 2 draft picks, and you're thinking, for a guy that no, Andre Drummond's not going to garner 2 draft picks at his age and what he does for you. He's a backup center.
I didn't understand that, though.
I thought it was so strange. I was like, what are the Bulls doing where you're just trying to get in that play-in? And which obviously, whatever, that's what you want to do. I just thought that was odd because Caruso had a lot of people interested in him, and Drummond did as well. And I thought, what are you doing, Chicago?
I didn't trade Caruso. Was just straight up for Josh Giddey.
Just
that you could have got so much more for him.
What's happening right now? I guess they realized we're not going to get anything. Yeah. Oklahoma City is going to be drafting from here until eternity, as are the Nets.
At least multiple first round picks.
Exactly. All those teams do. I think that the Nets have, and I know a lot of people are loading up on 2025 draft picks because it is supposed to be a very good draft, but I think the Nets have 3 or 4 next year, and I think the Thunder have 3 or 4 next year, first rounders. I think 3 first rounders for each team, which is bananas to think. Sometimes you only have 1 if you're lucky, because you might have traded it away previously. So I love that he sent out, I'm a move for Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah,
that was at 7 o'clock. And then all of a sudden, at 7:03, Shams and Woj come out with it. So that's going to be a move that's going to move the needle quite a bit, I think, for the Sixers. A viable backup. I would think the fans have to be pleased with that. And I'm sure he's pleased. I think he did enjoy his time here. Obviously, It's a different coaching staff, but I think
Philly love him.
Philly did love him. That's the thing.
Let's just be honest. I'm a Philadelphian people, and I know we get a bad rap on our fans, but if we love you, we love you. We hate you, we hate you. It's just a fact. But they loved Drummond because he just played hard, and he understood the value he came in, especially understood that Joel was going to miss some games. And Joel missed game, we felt comfortable that Drummond could step in and give us a heck of a performance.
Yeah, it'll be good, just because I know a lot of people are getting antsy when you're seeing. The thing is, there haven't been a bunch of signings period. The signing period opens at 6 o'clock. It does not close at 6 o'clock. I think that's something to remember. This is a little bit of different, kind of cup of tea if you're trying to sit there and figure out why I haven't done anything. This was obviously one of the chips that they wanted to kind of get and collect. I think the other one, we mentioned it a couple times before. They are in on Paul George. They are interested in Paul George. What it'll take to bring him here, that remains to be seen. Because Paul George is also meeting with the Clips, his current team, which he opted out of that deal, and then the Magic as well, which again makes me want to giggle, but it's a fact. The Magic are actually a free agent buyer. Seems so strange to me.
Yeah,
the Magic are a free agent buyer, but it's we're throwing it back, and they're on the up and up when it comes to that. So it looks like, Josh Verlin says, thank you, Josh Verlin from City of Basketball Love. Andre Drummond coached Sharif at the NBA Top 100 camp.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So I can't wait for him to come back because I'm going to be the first one at the door because, Sharif and Carmelo's son, Kyan, was teammates. And Kyan averaged 39 shots a game, and Drummond didn't say nothing. Say, yeah, come on back, Drummond. Come here, have a conversation with you back in the back room back here a little bit. He signed, right? You already signed?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me talk to you from in this back room back here.
You're welcome back. I cannot wait for media day. So Mark and I get to go out. We go out to media day, and
I'm like, you did a coaching job this summer.
Hey,
how you let that point guard shoot 39 times a game?
Hey, guys, tell me more about this. You remember Sharif? We'll have a picture of Sharif there. Remember this guy? Remember this guy? Top 100 camp? Let's talk about him. That's good stuff. So thanks to Josh Verlin for sending me that on Twitter. Man. Josh Verlin, a great site, City of Basketball Love, one of my best, one of my favorite sites. That's for local hoops, a lot of high school hoops, some college hoops as well, but really good site there. So I appreciate Josh was, I think, covering that, the Top 100 camp, was giving shouts out for Sharif earlier. So that's why we were having that conversation, kind of offline a little bit on that. But so, all right, so this is some movement. And I think that's what you want to see, that they, Jake Fisher, I think he's from Yahoo, says that they thought they had a trade. I remember that they thought they had a trade for Andre Drummond, and I think that they thought it, and then the Bulls wanted more, and they thought, "Look, what are we doing?" It would have been interesting, and obviously hindsight's 2020, but I think you have to operate, as we mentioned, going forward, that you're going to have large chunks of time without Joel Embiid, whether it's rest, whether it's injury, whatever. And looking back, it would have been really nice to have Andre Drummond to fill in that role.
Imagine we had Drummond
for 37 games.
Chicago, you did us wrong. You did us wrong.
We don't appreciate that, and we'll let you know. But now it comes through. So it'll be interesting to see what happens elsewhere on that front, because I feel like this is like one of these things. Like, okay, what do we have here? Oh. Ryan McDonough on NBA TV suggests the Drummond deal could be a sign they already know about Paul George. I said point guard. I was like, PG. Just because. Okay, so Andrew Bagley on our Twitter, I guess he's watching on either Twitter or something. He says, "Is Paul Reed gone?" Paul Reed's not technically gone, but his contract is not guaranteed anymore, so he is probably gone. Yeah. He had a guarantee.
Which is a strange deal he signed with Utah to begin with.
So if you remember this time last year, Utah came in, it was like 3 years, like here's all this money, and they had like a
3 year 27, I think.
Or and the Sixers were like, hold up, that's our guy. So they swoop in, they match it, and there was a clause in it that if the Sixers didn't get past the first round, the rest of the deal becomes non-guaranteed, meaning they could just
tear it up. That was so strange.
And I get it why you sign it, but obviously that they didn't make it past the first round, and confidence-wise, you think, of course, you're going to get past the first round. We got Joel Embiid. Exactly. That didn't happen, so the whole deal was basically nullified, and so they'd have to re-sign him. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're now that signing to me with Andre Drummond says everything. And if what they're saying on NBA TV is that they already know about Paul George, when you look at the money, that would match, right? Because you're looking at $5 million, and if they sign Paul George to a full contract, you're looking at like $14 million or so left over for just this year after what you signed Paul George for. And now you've got $5 million for that, meaning you got $9 million left over. That's not a lot, but that's
people
why
not a lot is relevant to the conversation of NBA contracts.
Yeah.
Okay?
So Paul Reed is likely gone. But he's a viable NBA player. I have no doubt he'll be signed and snatched up by somebody. The Jazz wanted him big time last year. They offered him a 3-year contract. The Sixers matched. But you do worry about, kind of tying yourself to a max deal for a guy like Paul George, given his age and restraints. But I feel like the Sixers, and this is just my feeling, and this is not like reporting or anything, you're not operating in a 4 to 5 year window. Whatever that contract is, you're operating more in a 2-year window, right? Like, so we'll worry about that later. We're trying to win now with our guy right now.
Yes.
I think Paul George is probably going to sign a really big deal. It'll probably either be, sources, can say what they want, but if he signs with the Sixers, which we do not know yet, he has not signed with the Sixers on even like an inkling of unofficial or official. He's meeting with the Sixers in LA. He's also meeting with the Magic, and he's going to meet with the Clippers. But if the Sixers woo him and they sign him here to a max deal, I think you need to remember, like, all right, it is going to hamstring the Sixers for a period of time, but they're really looking to capitalize on the next 1 or 2 years.
Yes.
Because I think that's what you're looking at, right? I mean, you're looking at what you can do with Joel Embiid for the next 1 or 2 years and what you've got with this next year right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with all that. You got to look at Joel's prime. Like, everybody's prime is different. Joel being a big guy, a history of injuries, things like that, you just don't know. With that being said, you take the first step, and the first step is getting a backup to take care of that. Because consistently every year, Joel misses some games for some kind of freak accident. You say, well, let's nip that in the bud. Let's take care of that. Let's sign Drummond, and let's see what else we can work out. Hopefully it's something good.
So Shams having this report from a player who played here for the NBA and then went overseas, had some nice play over there in Greece, and now he's back. It's Kevin Porter Jr. So you're thinking about what that could mean for what the Clippers want to do. So he's 2-year deal with the Clippers. I think he's a good player. He's a shooting guard, rangy guy. I think that when he was with the Rockets, I think he averaged quite a bit.
Like 20-something.
Yeah, I was going to say like 19 to 20 points. We can look that up. But you wonder are they trying to get players on the cheap so they can try to keep Paul George? Or here we go. Here you got Kevin Porter. Oh, his first name's not even Kevin. That's interesting. So the fun facts you learn when you look at Basketball Reference. So Andrew Bagley says, can they take the Batum money and maybe use it? So Batum wasn't guaranteed. So there's only one contract on their books right now, and that was Joel Embiid. One financial contract, really, as far as what the terms are. Obviously they're gonna max out Tyrese Maxey. Interesting that he can't get as much as he could have gotten, Mark, because he didn't make all NBA. He could have gotten $245 million, and he's going to get $204 million. Like that's crazy to me that like people voting can decide that guy's salary. I know it's at $40 million and it's going to be over $200 million, but that's actually a pretty good chunk of change when you think about it. Is that weird to you?
It's not weird. That's the Derrick Rose rule.
Yeah.
For if you make all NBA, or also you get to have a different thing because that hamstring Derrick Rose because he was still so young. Right. He was in his rookie contract. So that's what happened. So they adjusted that rule. So if you play great, you get to sign a bigger deal like that on your rookie deal, and that's what happened. Unfortunately for Maxey, he didn't get voted in, and that's what happens.
We're still going to make about $205 million.
That's not too shabby.
So I think he's going to be okay. He's also rocking a new look. What do you think of the cornrows? Have you seen him?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Maxey got cornrows?
Straight back.
Really?
Yeah, I'll have to.
Nah, he got to go back with that. Nah. You know what? Anything to make sure we can see a smile, though.
See if you can show it.
Show McCann. He was in Cannes last week.
Says the braids are growing on him. Give him the. So we're trying to find a picture for Mark. All these critics trying to see so you can see him. They look. It's Joel Embiid-esque when Joel goes corporate.
They probably got the same person doing them.
He was overseas for quite a while. I wonder
Cannes,
if he was in Cannes. I think he went to Spain too.
He's so fast. I like to see when his hair is just going in the wind.
I feel like every time, so Mark knows this, we always have these graphics that are behind us, whether we're at the big board or wherever, and it's always Maxey in motion, and his hair is always like crazy, doing something crazy, because there's no still shots of him. Exactly. He doesn't like calmly bring the ball up, very rarely. So every shot that we have of him is always like him in motion, and it's pretty crazy. So, 2-year, $10 million plus for Andre Drummond. Again, that would be about $5 million, and I think that would be very interesting. Oh, I think they will make Paul Reed power forward. Yeah, I mean, Paul Reed, I think, is a 4.
Tried.
Yeah, I think he is probably a 4.
And not in today's game, though, Amy.
Yeah. You have to really shoot well.
Yeah.
It's so different, isn't it? It's crazy how different everything is.
Exactly. And you got to be able to guard perimeter players because the 4s are pretty much like bigger guards.
Yeah.
So you got for him to play the 4. I don't know if his foot speed,
Karl-Anthony Towns,
and angles.
That's who he has to guard.
Exactly.
He has to guard Karl-Anthony Towns. That's a 4 in today's NBA. That's a pretty physical guy, a big guy, but a guy that can shoot. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns is a great 3-point shooter.
Yes, he is.
So Andrew wants to know about Justin Edwards. Mark and I can talk about Justin Edwards. He's a Philly guy.
Yep.
Justin Edwards. Somebody actually wrote me. I think I know who it was. It's Paul Hudrick. And he was like, he texted me. He's like, tell me what happened to Justin Edwards? Oh, Clayton, I don't need any stats on Justin Edwards. Come on. No one watched more Justin Edwards except for Mr. and Mrs. Edwards than me here in the Philadelphia area. But, he was a guy, Mark knows it, coming out of high school, probably could have been a lottery pick.
Yep.
He has prototypical NBA size. He was a good shooter in high school, very physical, great athlete, jump out the gym, and he goes to Kentucky. And John Calipari, I think, I don't know. I don't know if it was the pressure. I don't know if it was playing with different people. I'm not really entirely sure. I will say that Calipari started him, maybe at his detriment. He started DJ Wagner and Justin Edwards over Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd. And look into that whatever you want. That's how it was. Those guys were sixth men, and they went in the top 10. Whatever. That's fine. I'm not bitter about it. They also, none of them won a single NCAA tournament game or an SEC tournament game. That's fine. But he is a steal. And I know Cal put it out there on the Twitterverse, but I think it is true. I think Justin Edwards can be a very good NBA player. He started to figure it out towards the end of his college career. I think he ran out of time, to be honest. I think if they had had any kind of playoff run or postseason run, I should say, I think he would have done well, because he started off so slow, and he was the type of guy. And I wanted to, I didn't get to talk to a lot of people down there just because we're in the middle of our season here too. But like, what was he like? You know, like when you see a guy, Mark, that's like, does what he did, and he would have like these 1-for-7 games and 0-for-8. You're thinking, that's not who he was. He was a great player at Imhotep.
Exactly.
And you thought, like, was it his confidence? What do you think happened there?
So when you in order for shooters to have consistent high percentages, they got to get a lot of shots. And when you playing with a team that has a bunch of one-on-one players, that's not always a great thing when you a guy who's a shooter.
Yeah.
He's a prototypical 3-and-D guy. That's in Imhotep. He did more, but I think in this level, he's a 3-and-D guy. He has great length. He's 6'7", maybe a little bit taller. He can shoot the ball way above average. You know, but the thing is, when you play at Kentucky, you're playing with 8 other guys that can do what you do. But the thing what they did, they also handled the ball and pounded the ball a lot more. So it's a Tobias effect. You actually catch yourself waiting for a shot, and you go 3 or 4 possessions not touching the ball. And I got a theory on that. In order to have consistency in your game, you have to have consistent touches of the ball. Even if you're not shooting, you have to be involved in the offense. When you go on 3 and 4 plays and not touching the ball, it throws your game completely off. And that's what happened to Justin Edwards in Kentucky. Now, I'm still surprised he came out, because like I was trying to tell someone, when you work out for these teams, you ask them, what do you think I need to work on? What do you think I do well? How do you think it will translate to the game? Where do you think I will be drafted? And you work out for enough teams, they're going to give you the consensus. And I'm quite sure they told him, Justin, hey, you even went late second round, you're not going to get drafted. At that point, if me, I would have personally went back to Kentucky or maybe even followed Kyle to Arkansas. But I was surprised he came out. But I think he's going to find a place in the NBA. But listen, that G League is a grind. So you're playing on them grown men, and he got to be able to come through.
Yeah, it's a 2-way contract that he signed for with the Sixers. Local kid, obviously played Philadelphia here, played for Imhotep. Very good career. It had a lot of expectations. He was a guy that was on a lot of people's boards, one of the top recruits. He actually on some boards surpassed DJ Wagner for the top recruit. There's a couple guys that were in there. They were like 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. They were up there. And you see DJ Wagner, he started every game. He did not have a great college 1 year. He is now transferred to Arkansas, followed John Calipari there, which I think was the lock of the decade. I don't even know why he said he was opening up the transfer portal. That was a joke. Of course he was going to go there. His dad played for him, and I think the only other place he would have gone is Louisville. But obviously they don't have Kenny Payne anymore, who he was a good family friend, and his grandfather was coaching there as well. So that little fizzled out. But I think Justin Edwards, stranger things have happened, right? He could just turn out to be just a guy and whatever else, because Brian Brennan and I talk about this. There's guys that we look at before, like an Alex Poitras or a James Young, and you're thinking, big size, decent shooter, like why can't they make it? If you don't make your shot in this NBA, that's it. And I think that Justin Edwards, his numbers are going to be light. Like they're going to show 36% from 3, and they're not going to show a lot of volume with it. I think it's because of the system he played in. Tyrese Maxey had the same problem. Listen, he was a 30% three-point shooter because Ashton Hagans was that guy. Emmanuel Quickley was that guy. They didn't ask Maxey to do that. He obviously could. We've seen that, and he gets most improved player. But that to me was like, of course he's the most improved player because he's gotten playing time.
Exactly.
He's gotten the opportunity. So I'll be interested to see. I think Justin Edwards is a nice signing for the Sixers. It's a guy like, why wouldn't you take a flyer on just to see what he can do? And I think for him, he's got something to prove, and I think that he's going to go ahead and do that. So I don't think there's any other let's see. Do a little up. Let me just refresh here. I know you guys are all refreshing at home. Clayton's going to refresh for us as well. So these people reposting like Paul George from 2015. No one likes you. Don't do that. Don't do that. You give us heart attacks. So there's a Paul George tweet. So don't fall for it. It's from February 19th, 2015. It says, "Hello, Philly." Don't fall for it. Stuff like that gives people heart failure. Of course, if he retweets it, that's a completely different thing. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, there you go. KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope leaving the Nuggets, headed to the Magic. Don't sleep on the Magic, you guys.
Which says that the Magic knew they wasn't getting Paul George.
Yeah,
like
that
I told
absolutely.
You. So,
That absolutely. So Paul George out for
3 years.
The
40.
Magic. 3-year deal for KCP.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. So I would think, I mean, again, I don't want to read too much into it, but I think that is leaning toward, now it's just between the Sixers and the Clippers. I don't think that there's any question. I don't know exactly what the Clippers are looking at. Obviously, they probably counted on re-signing him and making the James Harden move. I don't think the James Harden, in case you're just joining us, they have a 2-year extension for James Harden to stay with the Clippers. So I don't think that impacts the Paul George signing for them at all. I haven't seen any other moves that would belie that point, or that the Clips couldn't re-sign him. That is interesting though. So KCP is off the board. He's going to the Magic. I would think that would mean the Magic, are out now. They can't. I don't think they have the money to now sign him. Like I said, it's not like baseball where it's just you get a contract and you get $500 million. I know a lot of people talking about Klay Thompson on here. If Klay Thompson comes here and it's a veteran minimum,
I don't think he would be comfortable coming off the bench in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's the thing. With the way the money shakes out, he's looking for a bigger deal than
it's not there.
And he's not.
It's only with his team and here. And
yeah.
I don't know. I think he's gonna. That's unfortunate. I think him looking at everybody else's contract respectfully with Golden State made him lose his feelings, and he's gonna leave, and it's gonna be bad. I think his market is dried out for Klay. I really do.
Someone said, "Why would Klay come off the bench?" Because Klay is not the Klay Thompson that we're used to.
Exactly.
And would you have Tyrese Maxey be the point? So what is it? 3 years, $66 million for KCP. Well, the Magic are definitely not in on Paul George anymore. So that ship has sailed. That's a nice thank you for coming. We're out. We're gonna. Do you validate the parking? No. Okay, we're just gonna leave because we're gonna go elsewhere. All right. So to me, I would think the Sixers are in. They have a viable chance to sign Paul George if he wants to come here. They've only made one move. It's just the Andre Drummond, and you're looking at a $5 million deal per year. They said $10 million plus for 2 years. So I would think, the Sixers. Maybe they could get Klay. I just don't see him coming here for a veteran minimum. Yeah. And if you sign Paul George, that's what he would have to be on. The money just isn't going to be there. You're basically looking at 40-something million for Paul George, and then.
But I could see him saying, if you don't get Paul George, sign me.
Yeah. Oh. Can you imagine? How would you swallow that pill? If you don't get Paul George, you get Klay Thompson instead.
Depends on the money. Depends on what we're getting for.
Yeah. But then maybe you could get somebody else, I guess.
Exactly.
And then would you go after a Brandon Ingram type?
Yeah, because I think you have more flexibility.
Yeah,
you have more room to mess
you
with.
would have more flexibility.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so KCP, that was a big name out there as far as people were interested in, like, what he was going to pick up for the rising Magic. That is for sure. That is a team on the rise, as I said. Starting shoot guard for 2 NBA title teams, the Lakers and the Nuggets. That is amazing. So Quentin says, I just want Tobias Harris to leave. Well, he's already gone. So he's already gone. Sorry, Tobias is gone. It's crazy. It's great. No more Tobias Harris on this one. So he will go, and I think that we saw it was the Magic, the Mavericks, the Clippers, and the Pistons were all interested in Tobias Harris's services, and we wish him well. I saw that someone said the Clippers signed James Harden 2 years. I don't think they get Paul George also. I think that was already banked. I think that they already had decided that. I don't think I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but I don't think I don't think that would prohibit them based on how it's an extension. So I think the way that it would be structured, I think that the Clippers are still a viable destination for Paul George, the way that that's structured. That is a big loss for the Nuggets. We talk about the Nuggets team and those role players. KCP obviously was a very good role player for them, an elite level role player, a starting shooting guard on an NBA championship team. So it'll be very interesting to see how they kind of fill that role. They have some really nice players out there. We mentioned Michael Porter Jr., and then obviously also Aaron Gordon, who's had a real resurgence. I mean, speaking of the Magic, here was a guy that they were going to try to build their franchise around, and he took a lesser role to go out there and he wins a title with the Nuggets. Sometimes that's the type of player you need, Mark.
Yeah, it is. You need a guy who's willing to accept this role. And plus, playing with Jokic makes the game so easy because it's 7 of a point guard, and he's telling you all you got to do is just find a way to get open, and I'm going to find you. He got, I think, 60% of his dunks was passes from Jokic. And when you do it like that, that says a lot.
Oh, so Joey Lynn, this is actually, I guess he's saying Shams Charania reported the Nuggets and Russell Westbrook had mutual interests. It's real interest on Denver's part. He opted in his contract knowing there's a strong chance the Clippers could trade him elsewhere. I mean, I think that's a given. That also would clear another $4 million off of their books if they're able to. Yeah. And I think they will trade Russell Westbrook. I don't think that there's any chance that he is a Clipper next season. So again, the Clippers have room. They have money to spend. I think it's because it is the extension for Harden. And then even though he opted in, that's only $4 million. And I think that they would trade him. He'd obviously go on the books. Someone has Lauri Markkanen from the Jazz. I think that would be a high price. Lauri Markkanen
I would personally go there and drive from here myself. But so,
during the season, we get to talk about these players, and Lauri Markkanen is a player that Jimmy, Mark, me, we all talk about. We're like, this, wow. If you want a guy that's going to fit into this rotation right away, here's a player that will do it. Great 3-point shooter, great overall guy. I mean, look, here's his numbers from last year: 23 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 40% 3-point shooting, 90% from the free throw line, 48%. I mean, you're talking about a guy that shoots almost 50, 40, 90. That's the dream. That's what you want as far as an elite shooter, an elite scorer. Plays both the 4 and the 3. He is a rangy defender. I think sometimes he can get lost a little bit on defense, but I think he's a good defender. But they would obviously, teams like the Jazz, and we have to remember who runs the Jazz front office now. You always have to be wary when Danny Ainge's name is going to be involved, right? Because it's like when the Celtics make a deal. It's like, do you want the deal? Because is it a fair deal, or are they getting something more out of it? Like, exactly. I don't know. Stuff like that concerns me. But I think they'd want a king's ransom for Lauri Markkanen.
Absolutely.
Because he is such a valuable player. And a lot of teams are going to value that. Sixers have a little bit of draft capital going forward. They don't really, I guess they could sign a player and trade him if the Jazz are interested in something like that. I mean, you're looking at like signing a guy like, Tobias Harris was an interesting player they could have signed and traded, but they didn't do that. And I don't know that the Jazz are, maybe they would be, but I don't know. That would be interesting to me for Lauri Markkanen. I think you'd have to, I forgot he was the most improved player 2 years ago to see. So Steven's asking anything on Butler in Miami. I mean, that obviously has to be driven just by Miami.
Yeah.
They take several draft picks. Here's Lauri Markkanen's cap hit. So next year, $18 million. That's actually a pretty friendly deal for what he is. Obviously, it's the highest. It's the last year of his contract. So you'd be basically taking on a guy in hopes of re-signing him. But that's actually not too bad. I don't know why I thought it was higher for him, but it's not. All right. They do have his bird rights, but that wouldn't come into play until next year. All right. So $18 million. You'd have to make something match. So I think you'd have to have a sign and trade in addition to draft picks and stuff. I don't know, but I like that deal. I just don't know how viable it is for the Sixers to make it. I'm sure they're trying to work on something like that because I think that he would be a really good player. But I think you'd go with Lauri Markkanen, obviously, over Paul George. You don't have both of them. You don't have Paul George and Lauri Markkanen. All right. Yeah. I guess we're approaching now an hour and 35 minutes. So we'll probably start to wrap up here. Clayton's going to give us a real quick check just to make sure we didn't miss any big news on this one. There you go. Oh yeah. Suggs. True. That Magic team, watch out. They're no longer, well, it's funny because the Magic, the only reason they got the position they were in is because they won their silly division, which is nonsense. people don't even know what the divisions are anymore. And so they want nonsense. Let's just say that the Magic shouldn't have been as high seated as they were, but whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm not bitter about it at all. Do they read chat? Yeah, we read chat, me. I read the chat all the time. I love the chat. Putty should be re-signed if George comes to Philly. That's probably not happening. That's physically, probably financially not happening. Marc Jackson, how excited are you? Where are you going? Let me just, before we sign off, where are you going? Where's your next trip? I know you're brushing up on Spanish.
I'm taking my boys. Me and my 3 sons are going to Europe for the August 1st to September 1st. We'll be all over Europe, yes. France, Italy, Spain, Croatia. We also go to London. We're going to be all over. We're going to be everywhere. We're going to be all over. It's the last year I got all 3 of my boys for the go away college.
That's the thing.
So I want to do something nice.
Sharif is a rising senior, so he'll be headed somewhere to play ball, I'm sure. And obviously Sammy's coming up. He's already in high school. And then Shane will be in 8th grade as well. So they're all under one roof. And the rest of us hope that we can come back one day as one of Marc's children and go on these amazing trips. But shout out to the SAJ boys. Those are my guys. I love you guys. And Marc Jackson, thanks for joining us. Safe travels. Wonderful. It's always good. Thank you to everybody on our YouTube page, Twitter, Facebook. We appreciate you guys joining us. Of course, keep it on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com and NBC Sports Philly, because we'll be talking about all these moves as soon as they're made. We appreciate you joining us. Have a good night.